Alrighty, everybody. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes and then we'll start here on the charge. Again, guys, today we got a lot to talk about, so make sure you're tuned in, and we'll start in just a little bit. Alrighty, everybody, how is it going? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on the charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors. And let me just tilt my camera a little bit more down so that you guys can see me a little bit more. Hopefully, everything is good there. Like I said, what is up, everybody? How you doing? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here. Hopefully, you guys are going to enjoy today's stream. Of course, today is going to be more of a chill day. Kind of have a lot going on right now in the background. Don't want to, bore you guys with the details of all that stuff. So, just know that we are here to talk about basketball. We are here to discuss basketball, and we got a lot to talk about, of course. We have probably the biggest, most anticlimactic trade deadline, I would say, in NBA history. This trade deadline, there was supposed to be a lot of moves made, and unfortunately, from everything that I've noticed, everything that I saw, there wasn't a move other than maybe the Denver Nuggets move for Aaron Gordon, and we'll talk about all the trades in a little bit, is that nothing was really that impressive, in my opinion. Nothing really stood out to me and said, yes, this trade is going to get a team over the hump. This trade is going to help a team win a championship. The Brooklyn Nets, they were trying to go in for JJ Redick. They didn't get him. The Brooklyn Nets already have Blake Griffin. They got James Harden. It seems like the Nets, in my opinion, have definitely won the trade in some sort of capacity. Just because they got James Harden, which, of course, was the biggest kind of building block, and also the biggest thing that people wanted was, of course, that was James Harden himself. So, with that being said, let's get right into the news and rumors. And we'll go to the live scene now. And of course, guys, like I said, this is, of course, your boy Bernie here. Make sure to hit that like button. Also, remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. The more likes, the more subscribes, the more people are going to be watching us here on the charge today. Now, the first thing we have to talk about is, of course, the big trade that went on with, I would say, the big one that we probably should talk about. And we'll go to the NBA kind of trade and kind of look at, the trade grades, who were the big deals, winners and losers. So if we kind of go through the scrolling here, I don't think the video is going to play. Hopefully not. I think the biggest win for me, or kind of like one of the bigger ones, of course, was the Denver Nuggets swap deal for Aaron Gordon. If we look at that trade, the Nuggets got Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark. Meanwhile, the Magic get Gary Harris and RJ Hampton and a protected first round pick. Now, when I look at that and when I really see this sort of deal, Gary Harris didn't live up to that expectation and hype that he once had, like a couple years ago, where he was a great shooter. It looked like he was on the projection, like that, and that Nuggets team was on a projection to be a really good and solid team. But unfortunately, what happened was that his play regressed. He just regressed to a point where it just wasn't even worth having him on the team or even on the floor as a starter. And it's kind of disappointing because I really thought that Gary Harris had a high ceiling, but I think once you get more scouting in, people find out his tendencies. Gary Harris kind of got exposed a little bit, and RJ Hampton is still an unknown commodity at this point. Like, we have no idea. RJ Hampton could be a really solid player, or he could just be kind of like a Dante Exum. Like, we don't know what RJ Hampton's ceiling or his floor is at the moment. So we'll see how that one turns out. But I do think the Nuggets got a pretty solid player. Me and Brad, my boy Brad, talked about it. If you guys haven't watched our videos, please remember to watch those videos. There are some videos with me and my boy Brad, some with my boy Logan, one with all three of us. So make sure to go and check every video out here on the charge. Like I said, the more likes, the more subscribes, the more people are going to be willing to watch the channel. But kind of going back to the Aaron Gordon thing, Aaron Gordon adds some playmaking ability. He had some scoring. So I think that the Nuggets really got a solid player. And that slides Michael Porter Jr. to the bench, which I think is a good thing, because I think Michael Porter Jr. on a second unit could be an absolutely great player. Like, I think he could add some dynamic on offense, like almost like a six-man like Lou Will or Jamal Crawford, where they can just kind of add the dynamic of the offense and doesn't really have to worry about being the star, being the number one guy on a team. He can just be there to get buckets and call it good. I do think that Aaron Gordon is a great, tremendous improvement for the Nuggets. A team with it would be Jamal Murray, Barton, Millsap, Gordon, Murray, and Jokic. I mean, that looks to me like that should be a recipe for a W. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I think Aaron Gordon's a good player. I think he's a solid player. The question for me about Aaron Gordon now is going to be, how does his game, after being the man, after being the person in Orlando for so long, how does his game change? Does he become the same player he was in Orlando, or does he regress a little bit now that he's not the starter anymore? That to me is going to be the biggest question mark going into next season, is kind of for Aaron Gordon, or even the rest of the season, right? Is with the addition of Aaron Gordon, does that help the Nuggets get to the championship aspirations that they're looking for? Right now, they've gotten so close many times. They've battled the Lakers. Jokic got bullied, got fouled out, and without Jokic in the lineup, it really hurt the Denver Nuggets in those playoff series, especially against the LA Lakers. So, with that being said, adding Aaron Gordon, that adds another dynamic. That's another player that you have to worry about. So we'll see if Aaron Gordon can live up to the expectations that I think a lot of people are really looking out for. I'll save the Celtics one for last because I know whether Tyrese is on or whoever else is going to come onto the channel, I will save that one for a little bit earlier. We'll move on to the Blazers. The Blazers got Norman Powell. Meanwhile, the Raptors, who they traded with, get Rodney Hood and Gary Trent Jr. Now, to me, I am indifferent about this trade, and I'm also very disappointed in this trade. I think Gary Trent Jr. is a great player. He's a tremendous player, and I understand Rodney Hood was kind of playing very inconsistent, but I just felt like Gary Trent had a lot more on the tank, and I think he could have helped you win a championship more, especially with these LeBron James injuries, with these Anthony Davis injuries. Like, it seems like there's going to be more opportunities for Gary Trent and basically the Blazers to try and maybe get a championship. But unfortunately, they decided to go in a different direction and get Norman Powell. Again, I'm not the biggest Norman Powell guy. I think he's okay. I don't think he's anything special. But, at the end of the day, it's an expiring contract. They don't want to pay Gary Harris, so they don't want to lose him for nothing. But at the same time, I think Norman Powell is a restricted free agent or an unrestricted free agent. So at the end of the day, I don't know what that trade was for or what it was about, but we'll see what happens in that sort of situation. Again, I think Norman Powell, tremendous player. Rodney Hood, Gary Trent are great players for the Blazers, and I just don't know why that team would give up. And again, it's just kind of like it's a lateral move. There's no like increase or decrease or sort of a winner and loser in that trade. I just feel like it's kind of like, okay, you got rid of a really good player in Gary Trent for a really good player in Norman Powell, and that's really it. Nothing too crazy. It's like, now you have to have someone new to learn the offense, kind of get the intricacies down. And, we'll see what happens. I just don't know if that's kind of really the move that I would say is the best for the Blazers, in my opinion. Moving on to other trades, of course, Houston gets Victor Oladipo. If we go back to the trade so you guys can see, the Heat get Victor Oladipo. Meanwhile, the Rockets get Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a 2022 first-round swap picks rights. Now, the Rockets needed this for sure because they really are expecting to tank. They're expected to tank. They're expecting to become a really bad team. And depending on how the Heat do, this could be a great opportunity for them to swap picks and, create a scenario where the Rockets are able to get the pick that they desire in that 2022 draft. That's the draft of Amani Bates. So we'll see what happens there. I believe that's the draft of Amani Bates. I think he's a 2022 class. Or I guess maybe he's the 2022 class. So maybe it would be, your Palos, it would be your Chet Holmgrens, that kind of class. And, kind of looking at, who's coming down the pipeline. And I think that's what the Rockets are trying to do with these moves. I mean, getting Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk isn't going to do too much. Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley at this point, He was really good, but then opted out for not going to the bubble for the Lakers, which is unfortunate because I think he would have done tremendously well for them. But, maybe he gets bought out. Maybe he goes back to the Lakers and you have a championship aspiration with Avery Bradley. I mean, who knows? Like, this is going to be a very interesting scenario. And, of course, the Heat get Victor Oladipo. Again, I think Victor Oladipo got sold at a very low price, but this could be great news for him, right? He's going to a situation and a team that really understands the island of misfit toys and gets guys that don't really necessarily fit together and gets them to play well. Like Jimmy Butler right now and Bam Adebayo are single-handedly, and Duncan Robinson and maybe a little bit of Tyler Hero are carrying this Heat team to a fourth place again. But I could definitely see Victor Oladipo adding that dynamic and firepower, maybe off the bench or maybe starting, to really get to bolster the Heat's opportunities to score the basket and really get them to stretch the floor. Again, Victor Oladipo, maybe not the best three-point shooter. He's a good three-point shooter, but maybe not the best. But it's still a great pickup, and it's still a great add for them to get a guy like Victor Oladipo to come in, help out. And I just think that that's such a tremendous job that they did to get him. So we'll see what happens. It'll be a very interesting situation and a very interesting scenario to see like what the Miami Heat are able to do in the playoff series again. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of this trade? Do you guys like it? Do you dislike it? And again, we got a lot to talk about. And especially going to the Celtics, when I will talk about them, I will definitely have to I can't even talk today. I will have to hammer home my point with the Boston Celtics in just 1 second. But in terms of anything else, Rondo going back to LA as a Clipper now, I think Cuffs the Legend said it best. Basically, they traded for their leader that they needed, and they desperately needed Rondo. Like, Rondo is such a great player, leadership-wise. Like, you want that leadership on your team, and the Clippers understood that, and, they traded away Lou Will and 2 future second-round picks. Like I said, Rondo doesn't garner much value, but the value you did get for him, hey, man, let Lou Williams gets to go back to Atlanta, enjoy the wings that he cared so much about to get suspended during the playoffs. Gets 2 future second-round picks, which could be tremendously helpful. In the near future, you might be finding your next superstar guy. Who knows? You might be finding your next role player. So that also should be a very interesting one. The 76ers acquired George Hill. I think this is an L for the 76ers. I feel like the curse of George Hill is still alive and well. And so I think that you're going to see this sort of situation happen. And, I just don't necessarily think that this is going to be a great situation for them. So, again, it is what it is for them. George Hill, kind of just average. And I don't really think he's going to help much in that changing anybody's mind and opinion as to, how the 76ers are going to play. Like, again, Ben Simmons, we'll see in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, injured again. Like, this to me is just kind of one of those scenarios where the 76ers are going to 76ers. There's always something up with them, whether it's injury, whether it's, getting exposed in the playoffs. I just feel like that's kind of the scenario that the 76ers find themselves in. And it's because I don't think they do a necessarily great job of building a roster around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. We can blame Elton Brand for that. We can blame other people for it. But at the end of the day, they have to do a much better job. And I just don't think they have been, at this point, doing a much better job. Celtics get Mo Wagner. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Kind of the big one, other than that, is Vucevic. Vucevic will be going to the Houston Rockets. Let me see if I can find that trade. Let's see here. Let's see here. I don't even see this trade. In this, maybe it's somewhere in here. There we go. Bulls trade for All-Star Vucevic. The Bulls get Vucevic and Al-Farouq Amino. Meanwhile, the Magic get Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks, which I think is a tremendous win for the Magic. The Magic have basically said they need to go full rebuild. They've obviously kept this roster for so long, and, at the end of the day, this roster isn't good enough to win a championship. You had Markelle Fultz, who I think is starting to become a better point guard. Obviously, he had to deal with the situation with the 76ers, which I still think it's BS. And I think the 76ers and that shooting coach, whoever that shooting coach is, ruined his sort of, kind of progression in this league and kind of halted it to a point where, like, you wasted a year or two, and that year or two could make the huge difference between whether or not you become a great player or whether you not become average. And so, again, I do think that the Bulls got rid of, Otto Porter Jr. in that expiring contract. That contract was so huge, and I'm glad that they got rid of it because Otto Porter Jr., in my opinion, has been a bust. I understand that the Wizards paid him. They traded him to the Bulls, and there's a reason why they did trade him to the Bulls because his three-point shooting, yes, he had a great season in Washington, but he just couldn't replicate that in the years to come. And Wendell Carter Jr., I think, is still a very young big who could potentially be a quality starter level for them. So I do think that it's a good idea to get him signed, to get him going, because again, I do think that his ability and I do think that his growth and progression shows me that there might be something in there, but who knows? At this point, we're still trying to figure out what, Wendell Carter Jr. is. He had a pretty decent freshman year campaign, or I should say a rookie year campaign, and then just kind of faltered off a little bit. So again, we'll see what happens with it. I'm excited to see this team. And again, they get 2 future first round picks. If the Bulls end up tanking and suck, those first round picks end up going to, the Magic, who we know the Magic are trying to rebuild. They're trying to find their center. They're trying to find all their pieces. They got rid of Aaron Gordon. The only piece that they really have left is Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. Isaac is controversial within himself. We'll see if he can kind of become the player that he once was. But, I'm wondering if he does get healthy that they just decide to trade him. Because I think that they're trying to go full rebuild and try to go full, trying to build a new team around Markelle Fultz. And, we'll see what happens. I think it is going to be an interesting scenario. Again, Nikola Vucevic, I think it's a lot to give up for a 30-year-old. But at the end of the day, if you feel like he's going to help you win a championship and keep Zach LaVine in Chicago, then I think you have to do it. Because if he doesn't stay in Chicago, then the Bulls again lose out on another superstar player to join their team and to build up their team and get much better. And I think that's really it in terms of like the big trades. Obviously, JJ Redick goes to the Mavericks. The Pelicans get James Johnson and Wes Owundo and a 2nd round pick. I mean, that one's just kind of meh. It is what it is on that one. But let's talk Celtics. I think Celtics to me is the biggest one, and it's kind of the reason why they're one of my biggest losers in this draft or in this trade deadline. Because when I really look at the trade deadline and when I really look at trading in general, my frustration with the Boston Celtics is the fact that they didn't go out and get a Vucevic. They didn't go out and get an Aaron Gordon. And when we look at what it took to get those guys, to me, honest with you, I don't think it was that much. Like, we look at the Magic, they got Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, 2025 protected 1st round pick. I mean, you're telling me we couldn't do the same type of deal with them where we gave them Marcus Smart, an unprotected 1st round pick, and maybe like a Naismith or a Romeo Langford, and that wouldn't work as well. I mean, I'm not saying, because Gary Harris is obviously better than all those guys that I just mentioned. Maybe Marcus Smart, not so much. But I think that's probably the way I would do it, in my opinion. I don't think I would go the route of not doing anything and just trading for Evan Fournier, and we'll get into that trade in just a second. But again, I think the Celtics had so many potential. I mean, one of the stories that we're going to talk about here is the Celtics tried to trade for Vucevic. The Boston Celtics pursued for trade for Vucevic before he was moved to Orlando to Chicago. Boston was linked with him and talks to Aaron Gordon as well. Like, the Celtics were interested in so many players in the Orlando Magic, and the one that we got is one that we probably can't even sign because we don't have the cap space to sign him. And that is Evan Fournier, who I think is a really good player. I think he actually is a solid guy. But what we need is, long-term guys. Like, we need a long-term Aaron Gordon. We need a Vucevic who we'll see if we can get a couple more years out of. I mean, if we can get Al Horford, I would be okay with that as well. I mean, I know Al Horford isn't everybody's cup of tea, but he's still a great player, and I still think that he could potentially add some value to our team. I don't think he made sense on the 76ers. I think he makes more sense on the Boston Celtics with the way that we play. But at the end of the day, my frustration, again, comes to the Celtics just trading away Daniel Theis in a tax-saving move, and then they're going to pursue Andre Drummond in the buyout market. I don't think Andre Drummond's coming to the Celtics. I really do think he's going to LA. He's going to go to the Clippers. He might even go to the Brooklyn Nets even, because I don't see us having that sort of draw and power. Like, what's there in Boston right now that's interesting to anybody? I mean, Evan Fournier adds some interest and intrigue to the Boston Celtics, but, it's been the same team for majority of my time that I've been a Celtics fan. Like, the Celtics have really, they've gotten so good, and then all of a sudden they got rid of some players, and then they had to replace them. And now all the players that are the replacement players for those players that we got ends up being kind of numpty or not even that good. I mean, we think about, we had Terry Rozier at one point coming off the bench. Now it's like we have I can't even tell you the name of our other point guard. We got rid of Teague now, so it's like, at the end of the day, I think the frustrating thing for me is going to be the fact that we look at all these trades, we look at all these rumors, and the fact that the Celtics, again, could not close out a deal to get even Aaron Gordon. I mean, we tried. How many times have I seen this word tried for the Boston Celtics? Celtics tried. I feel like I see that word all the time. Celtics are trying to get Aaron Gordon. Celtics are trying to get Andre Drummond. Celtics are trying to get Kevin Love. Celtics are trying to... I'm tired of trying. I need results and I need action. And the problem with the Boston Celtics is that I'm not getting that from Danny Ainge. I'm not getting that from any of them. And the problem and the frustration that grows with inside me for the Boston Celtics is, we have so much history, so much credit, so much, I would say, notoriety or notability or whatever you want to call it, to the point where we should be able to, court anybody to come to the Boston Celtics. Like, we shouldn't be begging people to come. And that's what I feel like we've turned into. Just the team that begs and hopefully tries to land a good player. Meanwhile, the bad teams have gotten better, and the Celtics have kind of either stayed the same since they won their championship or honestly have gone much lower. And it's one of those things that you just have to deal with, and you have to understand that the Celtics right now are in a predicament that I think a lot of us wouldn't find happening. But like I said, the Celtics need to stop trying and actually start doing. And the more action that I see from the Celtics, the better this team will be. The better it feels like we will get the pieces that we need in order to win the championship. But until that happens, I'm tired of seeing try because, how many times do I have to see, Celtics try to get Kawhi Leonard, Celtics try to get this, Celtics try to get that. At the end of the day, the Celtics have to demand or get what they want. They can no longer just be like, we could just brush it off to the side. No, we have to be proactive, get the players that we want, get the players that we need, and start winning championships. Because, I even though Vucevic is a 30-year-old, I still think that he's a solid player. I still think he's a player that we should try and get and try and grab. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens. I think the Boston Celtics right now are in a predicament. They're in a situation where I don't know what the next move is going to be for the Miami Heat. For the Boston Celtics. As you can tell, it's been a long day. But, it's one of those things. You look at the situation. You look at the Celtics. They need to do better on and getting their pieces. But with that being said, let's look at Evan Fournier. You kind of look at his stats, see what he's about. Again, Evan Fournier is actually a really solid player. This year, averaging 19.7, 20 points per game, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. Shooting 38%, 79 from the free throw, and 46 from the field. Like, he is actually a really good player. He's a solid player. And if we look at his stats from here on out, from when he was, Denver Nuggets for a couple seasons and then ended up going to Orlando, you saw the growth and progression for Evan Fournier. And you saw how he was once a 5.3 point per game scorer to now he's almost a 20 point per game scorer. And again, the NBA today is so different that anybody can get 20 points. But at the same time, without discrediting everybody else, the one thing that I know for sure is that Evan Fournier is going to be a solid addition. I mean, shooting at least 40% from 3 is going to help us tremendously compared to some of our other players that we have on our team that can't even shoot that high of a percentage. And I think the Boston Celtics really found themselves a solid player for a rental. The problem is that he's a rental, and we had to use our trade exception fund that was created by Gordon Hayward. And again, I have nothing wrong with that. I don't have anything against it, but at the same time, it is frustrating to see that the Celtics couldn't really do anything in free agency besides getting Evan Fournier. Again, solid player, good person, shoots at the same field goal percentage, around 45, 46%. Like I said, and shoots about 40% from 3. So, I do think that at the end of the day, he will help us. But the question for me is going to be, does he want to resign long-term with the Boston Celtics? Because if that's the case, we got to let go of Smart. We got to let go of many other players, and it's just going to be one of those situations that we'll see what happens. And again, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of this whole ordeal? What do you make of this whole situation? And again, we'll probably cut the stream a little shorter today. I do think that it's Friday and people want to chill and kind of do their thing. So probably going to stream for a little bit longer. Just kind of talk, just trades, who won, who lost. and then we'll kind of call it good. I mean, the only thing is that of course the Celtics tried to trade for Vucevic. You know, they traded Theis instead, got some situations. You know, apparently Kyle Lowry, they wanted Horton Tucker, the Raptors did, and you know, Horton Tucker as a 20-year-old is going to be a lot more valuable than a Kyle Lowry at 35. I understand that Horton Tucker's a young player and Kyle Lowry's an older player, and more experience means that. So again, it's one of those things that I will kind of see the whole situation. We can do a Sweet 16 preview. I like that, PM. Shout out to PM in the chat. PM, would you mind coming on the show in a little bit to talk Sweet 16? I'm just going to finish up some trade rumor or some trade stuff. If you are willing, PM, to talk in a little bit, I am down to talk Sweet 16s and talk about that stuff if you are down. If not, I can just do it on my own, but I'm more than willing to have you on the show to kind of talk the Sweet 16 if you are down for that. And while PM gives me an answer on that, let me talk my biggest winners and losers of this draft thing. I would say the biggest winner, in my opinion, if I had to really like point out winners, losers, and all this other stuff, is of course going to be, I would say the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets were one of the biggest winners because, in my opinion, the Denver Nuggets got a really solid player in Aaron Gordon, a playmaker and a scorer and a facilitator, and a hustle and a defensive guy. Like that is something that the give me like 5 minutes, PM. Or I can, no, let me just finish the winners and losers and I'll bring you on the show. I'll open up my Discord in just a second. But again, at the end of the day, I do think that the biggest winners, the biggest losers had to be the, see, are these charged? Nope. See if I can find some charged headphones. Perfect. Charged headphones. Gotta love it. AirPod ones, perfect. And again, like I said, the biggest winners to me are the Denver Nuggets are my biggest winners. I think the biggest losers have to be the Boston Celtics and the Lakers. Again, the Lakers aren't the biggest losers because they didn't get Kyle Lowry or anything like that. But I did think that they needed to make some sort of move, whether that was to get LaMarcus Aldridge, whether that was to get any of these type of players that are out in the market. I do think that that's what the Lakers need to do, especially with AD and LeBron out. And so far, they just haven't came up with that sort of scenario and situation to come up with getting that player. So, again, it's one of those things where you look at it, you see it, and I hope that the Lakers, and more specifically the Boston Celtics, can somehow find some sort of way to get the player that we need. Because, again, the frustrating thing for me has always been, in my opinion, not being able to get the pieces that we need to win the championship. We always seem to struggle. We always seem to never get the players that we need. And again, it is frustrating to see that for for consecutive years that we just haven't gotten the person that we needed. We've always struggled to find that. And so I think that's the reason why we are one of the biggest losers in this trade deadline. The Miami Heat, one of my biggest winners as well. They got another superstar to add, or another all-star, I should say, to add to their Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero combo, which I think could be a very interesting, intriguing matchup. And again, the Miami Heat are a team that we kind of counted out at the beginning of the season, but look at where they're at right now, making some sneaky moves, making some great moves, and, kind of treating Tyler Hero as an untouchable commodity is a little laughable. But at the same time, the Miami Heat have created a culture, created a situation, created a scenario where they can basically just get whatever they want. And again, it's one of those things where you look at it. I do think that they are one of my biggest winners. And, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you look at it and just kind of see that they definitely did get what we needed. Again, let me just make sure everything's good. Output device. Perfect. Let's just check. Okay. I think we're set. Yep. Perfect. This might be muted. No, not muted. PM, I am in the Discord whenever you're ready to talk, man. So whenever you're in there, I am good to go. But as we wait for PM to join us here on the charge, the one thing again that also we can talk about biggest winners and losers. I think the Clippers actually were one of the bigger winners. Again, getting Rajon to be on your team, although he is a strong-headed kind of a leader role, where I feel like Kawhi and Paul George aren't. I do think that that's coming. I do think that that's another scenario where I do like the fact that they added that player. I do like the fact that they added a Kawhi Leonard. But, we'll see what happens. Again, this is going to be a very intriguing situation. It's going to be a very intriguing matchup to see who else that the Celtics could add, or who the Celtics, or sorry, not the Celtics, excuse me, the Clippers. I am having such a great day today. See what the Clippers can do there. I think, honestly, it's a high risk, high reward, but I do think that the Bulls actually are one of my bigger winners. I mean, getting Vucevic, obviously, I had high praise for him. I do like him. Again, 30 years old, very old for to get those draft picks and all this other stuff that they got for him. But at the same time, I do think that it was kind of a big scenario for them. And just give me 1 second. I'm not sure why I can't hear you. Oh, wait, I think you're good now. Let's see here. All right, I think I can hear you now, so you should be good. Can you hear me, PM? Okay. I should be in here, but I'm not sure if it's my microphone or... All right. I think it's good.
I cannot hear you for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, maybe I need to close out of the
voice and video.
First.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Okay. Jalen, you can hear him perfect. We'll kind of figure this out as we go. But again, just to kind of finish out as well, I think another loser that I had here as well. I would honestly say one of my bigger losers, honestly, is that the Bucks didn't go out and get more pieces in the trade, because I do think that the Bucks are still trying to contend for that championship. They're still trying to at least get in that conversation. But I feel like the addition of PJ Tucker was awesome, but they didn't really do anything else to wow me or to wow anybody. And I think that because of that whole scenario and that whole situation, I don't think that it's necessarily, I would say, one of my bigger winners. So again, I would probably say that they're one of my bigger losers, just because they didn't land anybody else.
Okay. I think.
Can you hear me now, PM?
What were you? What was the last team you were talking about?
The last team I was talking about was the Bucks, because I said that they didn't really do anything in free agency, or not free agency. Sorry, the trade deadline. Like, they got PJ Tucker, like that was a great addition, but I still think they need more in order to contend for a championship. And let's see here. Honestly, to be on to kind of be honest, or whatever the phrase is, I keep saying to be honest, but the big thing for me, I would say as well, is that this trade deadline was very underwhelming. There were some like last second moves that really kind of like shocked me initially, but looking back on it, there was nothing that wowed me. There's nothing that said like, wow, this player is switching over here, this player's going over there. Where I feel like the NFL just had a bombshell just earlier, and of course this isn't an NFL channel. One day, we hope to get there. Just has to do a little more rearrangement with it, but I do think that we could potentially see something crazy. So, PM, if you are there, are you ready to talk some NCAA?
For sure. One last thing on the NBA though. I thought the Oladipo to Miami trade was very interesting, just because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously Oladipo is a good player, especially as he's working his way back from the injury. But it's also pretty interesting because Houston's kind of circle of Harden trade is kind of done now, because they've pretty much gotten rid of all the assets that they've gotten from that trade besides, I think, like one first round pick, one or two.
Yeah. And I,
Yeah.
and I did talk about them as one of my biggest winners because, like I said, the Heat always find a way to get those island of misfit toys or like those players that don't seem like you would think that could fit and win and go on a run or win a championship. Those players seem to always somehow work out for them. And so I do think that they could be a team that could sneak into honestly, they could probably repeat as NBA Finals people again, with this trade because again, Jimmy Butler's been carrying it for so long. Bam Adebayo's getting to a point where he's starting to develop and grow and become the Bam Adebayo that we know. And then, Tyler Hero's kind of regressed a little bit. Duncan Robinson a little, I would say they're kind of over relying on them. But adding a Victor Oladipo, I think, stretches the floor, allows guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero to kind of go back into that traditional role that they had at the beginning of last year. And that's kind of where I think that the Miami Heat are at this point. And then let's move on to the NCAA Sweet 16. It's your chance to shine, PM, MTV style. Let's look at the college bracket and just kind of look at the Sweet 16 tournament and see. Whoops, no, we don't want to reseed. We want to look at the seeds. I don't think it shows me the full bracket. Maybe I'll have to go to. We'll go here and just kind of look at it again. The Sweet 16, obviously one of the biggest, I would say, again, one of the best things about college basketball is this tournament that we have, winning you're in and winning you're out. And, the Sweet 16 is very unpredictable this year with a lot of teams that you would think probably shouldn't have made it. Teams that, are underrated, overrated. But I do think it is time to talk about it. And PM, what do you make of the bracket so far for the Sweet 16?
I think it's been an incredibly fascinating tournament. Obviously, with the seeds the average seeds being higher than it's been in, I think at least five or so years, if not longer. I feel like it's just got to be already up there with one of the craziest tournaments that we've seen in kind of recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw one number one seed go down in the first weekend, which is always pretty crazy, and then also having Ohio State go down first game. That's just incredible. In fact, Oral Roberts is still in the tournament. They won their next game versus Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome. I've always kind of looked at the tournament and been like, you got to pick at least one of those kind of 15, 13, one of those teams to kind of make a run. And that's, it's awesome to see Oral Roberts doing what they do.
Exactly. And let me just list off the games before we kind of talk more in depth about it. Of course, we got Baylor, Villanova, we got Gonzaga, Creighton, we got USC, Oregon, we got Arkansas, Oral Roberts, we got Michigan, Florida State, UCLA, Alabama, Loyola, Chicago, Sister Jean making it another miracle run again, Oregon State, again, another team that you told me yourself not to bet against. And then you got Buddy Boeheim and Syracuse leading the pack against Houston. And so, again, like you said, PM, very interesting games, very different style of basketball. Each and every one of these teams are different. They don't seem to be the same blue bloods that we're used to, like the Dukes, the Kentuckys. Like, this is now as open as it could ever be. And then, of course, like I said, we got Oral Roberts in Arkansas as well. Oral Roberts making a huge kind of leap of faith, kind of a huge push to the tournament, beating a team like Florida. That's got to be impressive within itself. Why don't we start with the game that I think everybody wants to know about, PM? That is going to be Gonzaga and Creighton. Before we talk about them, PM, where did you have Creighton in your bracket?
I had them here, actually. Had them in the Sweet 16. Obviously the first game was a little nervy, but I had them beating UCSB, which they did by one, miraculously. That was a really close game. And then I actually called that Virginia Ohio upset as well, just because I think Virginia is not quite not a team I usually like in March. Obviously, they won it all. Not last year, but the year previously. Or was
Hmm.
it last? It was last year. So yeah, I mean, I guess it would be 2 years ago, but it was the last time the
Yeah.
NCAA was held. Anyway, I mean, sandwiched between their national championship is back-to-back first-round exits. So I'm also kind of a Tony Bennett hater for leaving Wazoo. So yeah, lots of things lined up on that upset, but that was the one I got correct, and then they won versus Ohio next game by like 14. So actually, yeah, had them in the Sweet 16. They're another Jesuit college like Gonzaga, so that's interesting. There were some Twitter bets placed between Gonzaga's president and Creighton's president. I think they wanted to send over maybe some cheese, I think, and Gonzaga was going to send them like apple and wine. Yeah, interesting. But um, I've watched Creighton a little bit this year. I mean, I feel like it's kind of typical. Their coach is Dougie McBucket's dad. I know he was in a little bit of controversy earlier this year, but just talking about his teams, yeah, they're always good offensively. I think that's to be expected out of any Creighton team. So, I mean, they'll probably put up some points. Could be another high scoring game like Oklahoma was. But I mean, ultimately, I think the last time that we played, I actually remember, was in 2018, and Gonzaga put up over 100, and I think Creighton put up like 80 something. You know,
Hmm.
I don't think it'll be that high scoring, but I'd be surprised if Creighton did put up some points.
Yeah, I mean Creighton's going to be led by their guy Denzel Monet, um, the guard. He's a good player, senior, obviously very experienced, very battle tested, and the reason why I had Creighton out of the first round in my sort of bracket was because I really thought the controversy was going to get to the coach. I thought it was going to get to the players in terms of it was a negative distraction on them, but nevertheless, they've taken all that distraction with stride, and they've been playing really well. I mean, like I said, they have a lot of great players on their team, and like you said, great offensively. But I think at the end of the day, if I had to go down to kind of the Gonzaga versus Creighton sort of battle, I think I have to. You obviously have to pick Gonzaga here. Gonzaga, they basically have the makings of an NBA or sorry, an NCAA champion, with the way that they've been playing, with the way that they've been just kind of running through the tournament so far. They really haven't had any trouble. Norfolk State didn't give them anything. Oklahoma, maybe at the beginning, but nothing too crazy. And so again, I don't expect Gonzaga to be tested until maybe the Final Four, or I think it would probably it'd be the Final Four. I think is when they would get tested. But I think Gonzaga wins this single handedly. I think they win it easily, and I think it's a double digit win for Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think anything other than a double digit win by Gonzaga would be a surprise. But I do think that a matchup with USC would be interesting in the Elite Eight, just because Mobley, the center for USC, obviously
Mm-hmm.
fantastic player, top 5 pick. I'm sure you've talked about him a lot on the
Mm-hmm.
channel, but he'd be a really, really bad matchup for Gonzaga. I mean, I don't think that USC or Oregon would be huge problems either way, but I do think that Mobley would kind of give Gonzaga a big guy that they haven't played against. I mean, Mobley's kind of one of one in college. Like, there's not
Mm-hmm.
anyone like it. But I mean, as far as dominant post presences go in college, I don't think you can find a better one than him. So I think he would have a good game versus Gonzaga, but I think that'd be an interesting game if they try to keep that low score and push, slow the pace down a ton. Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. But like you said, I think it's anything other than a Final Four run for Gonzaga would be a massive, massive failure.
Yeah, I mean, even going down to that next matchup that you talked about, USC and Oregon. This one to me is interesting. Obviously, Oregon did a really good job of shutting down Luca Garza. Obviously, they had to deal with the VCU situation where obviously VCU couldn't play due to COVID protocol, and they got the win. But I think Oregon is a sneaky good team, and I think that they have the roster, and I think they have the team to beat USC. The problem that I have with USC is I think that they're really one dimensional with Evan Mobley, and if he's not doing anything for them, if he's kind of rendered ineffective, if he's in foul trouble, then I think USC basically loses, because I don't think they have anybody on that team that could really do much other than, I feel, Mobley. So in my opinion, I think I have Oregon winning that game, and I would have Gonzaga and Oregon as a matchup in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, interesting thing for both these teams is that they both won, I think both by double digits, against very vastly higher seeded teams. Oregon beat Iowa, USC beat Kansas. I actually had USC over here, and I picked them to go to the next round. But I've watched both of these teams play, and kind of like with Pac-12 in general, their teams didn't quite wow you during the season, but I feel like USC has played in so many close games. Like, I was just reading today, they went into OT versus like multiple teams that were like, quadrant 4 or 3 or something like that. And then Oregon has lost just multiple head scratching games. I think the most recent one was versus Oregon State in the Pac-12 tournament. Because I think I bet against Oregon State on that game. That's why I like them going into the tournament. But yeah, this will be interesting. I mean, this is right up your alley, right? Pac-12 basketball. So this got to be it's got to be somewhere where I think I defer to you.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Pac-12 obviously hasn't been exciting. The Pac-12 is honestly lucky that they've gotten to where they're at. I mean, that's the thing with the NCAA tournament. It's unpredictable. You don't know who's going to win. You don't know what team is going to kind of wow or show up. And so that's another reason why this to me is a toss-up. Obviously, Oregon, USC. I don't remember what their matchup was, because I believe they're in the same, like, north. Oh, no, USC's in the south, Oregon's in the north. I'm not sure if it's the same way in basketball. But if I had to pick a team to win, like I said, I think it'd be Oregon. Their 3-point percentage is a little bit higher at 38%. Free throws, they shoot 70% compared to 64% for the Trojans. I mean, that's a huge discrepancy. I mean, obviously 70% is not good, but neither is 64%. So, kind of with that being,
I just looked up. I was just gonna say I looked up their previous game because they were supposed to play 2 games, but ended up only playing 1 because of COVID during the year, and USC lost by 14 in LA. So that's pretty funny. But they also said that USC is rated like 235th in pace, and obviously U of O struggled with Garza in the last round. So if they slow the game down, pound Mobley inside, I think their odds aren't too bad. I mean, I think Vegas is showing that it's like basically a pick 'em anyway. So
yeah, I mean, this game, to be honest with you, like you said, it's a pick 'em. It could go either way. It's a toss up, and this is going to be one of the interesting ones. I think no matter what team goes here, the only thing that will remain true is that Gonzaga will beat one of these teams, and these teams will go home packing. That's basically it.
I don't take Final Four appearances for granted, but I love the energy that's coming out from you.
I changed my pick at the last second.
How about we go over to the other Pac-12 team over in Oregon State?
Oregon State. Okay, we'll go down there. We'll go to the what is this going to be? The Midwest region. Move over a little bit. They're going to face either Buddy Boeheim and the Syracuse Orangemen, or they're going to face the Houston Cougars. I think they're the Cougars. But first things first, you got to battle Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean. This to me, I'm going to refer to you because I know you've been watching a little bit more Oregon State than I have, because you've been betting on it more than me. What about this matchup? Who do you like? What do you dislike? And who wins the Loyola Chicago Oregon State matchup?
I'll tell you right now, I can't name a single player on Oregon State, but they are one of my favorite teams because they've overcome such long odds, especially in the Pac-12 tournament. Weren't going to make the tournament basically without winning the Pac-12 tournament, and they sprung like 3 straight upsets. I think they were at least 5 or 6 times your money back on the money line for every dollar you put on them. Incredible that they've made it here. Incredible that they made it to this round. I actually had them winning their first game, losing to Oklahoma State, but they shut down shut down your boy over at Oklahoma State and got to this next round, I think, to the surprise of everybody. But yeah, I mean, look at that 16-point or 14-point win versus Tennessee, 10-point win versus Oklahoma State. Meanwhile, you look over at Loyola Chicago, both rattling off two 10-plus point margin of victories against Georgia Tech, Illinois, who I actually had in the had them in the final facing Gonzaga. I was wrong there, but I've been reading a lot about how Loyola has been underseeded, like massively, massively underseeded. I think I saw an article that said they were rated number 10 or in the top 10 for Ken Palm efficiency, which is crazy that they're ranked number 8. I only have to assume it's probably because they didn't get to face too many other quad 1 teams, but I love Oregon State's story. I love the fact they've been playing such good defense over the entire course of the Pac-12 tournament and the NCAA tournament. I feel like their offense has kind of come from all over the place. Their bigs are pretty good. They don't have a big like Evan Mobley, but I think they like to run their offense through them and then kick it back out. And if you play unselfish basketball, I feel like spreading the ball is a excellent way to play, especially when you don't have a star for anyone to kind of key on. So yeah, it's going to be kind of a team oriented attack with Oregon State. And then from what I've watched of Loyola Chicago, it looks like all of their guys just crash the boards like crazy. They run the floor. Illinois to me was such a great team because they could run. All of their guys could ball handle and get into the paint, but Loyola Chicago basically shut them down by aggressively trapping them on their pick and rolls, and then basically Illinois had no answer for that, which was kind of crazy to me. But I feel like Loyola Chicago is probably going to pull this one out. But I mean, don't sleep on Oregon State.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever count out Oregon State. Oregon State has been playing tremendous basketball, but just like you, I've been really impressed with Loyola Chicago. I think Loyola Chicago is starting to kind of make a name for themselves. I know we talk about the Wichita States, we talk about the VCUs, we talk about all these other schools. In the past, I've kind of made these type of runs, and we're like, oh, could this be the next, for the lack of a better team, Gonzaga? Could this be the next Gonzaga where it's kind of a smaller school, but they're able to create an environment where they're able to get top recruits to come there? And the coach for Loyola Chicago, I don't sleep on him. I think he could definitely make a move somewhere. If I'm one of these teams, I'm looking to hire him. But if he wants to stay in Loyola Chicago and just kind of create a kind of a culture there, I think the Ramblers could be a good scenario for any team or any kind of prospect coming in. And man, I think I have them winning this game. I mean, I didn't have them making them this far. I didn't realize Sister Jean was going to make the road trip with them, but it seems like she's always good luck when she comes with them. So I'm probably going to have them make a miracle run here again, and they're probably going to win this game, in my opinion. I mean, I love Oregon State. I think they've done a tremendous job, but I just think finishing inside field goal wise, I think they have a much better. They do a much better job compared to Oregon State. Oregon State in this tournament, I believe, has been shooting about 43% from the field, where I feel like Loyola Chicago shot about 50%. With about 26 field goals to 52 attempted. So, in my opinion, I think the more finishes you can have inside, the more accurate you are inside, while also being pretty decent. We're 37% from three, whereas Oregon State is about 35.6. I do think that this is going to be a win for the Ramblers. Again, this will be another tough win, but I do think it's going to be a win. I don't think it's going to be like the Georgia. I think it'll more simulate the Georgia Tech game than I will the Illinois game. I think the Illinois game was kind of a once in a lifetime type of game for them. And so I think I have the Ramblers and the Mall Cop beating the Beavers this Saturday.
Yeah, and then they're going to be matching up with either Syracuse or Houston, which I mean, I wouldn't bet against Loyola making it to the Final Four, especially because I think at that point, kind of as you get deeper into the tournament, I feel like you kind of want to go with coaches that have proven that they can do it there, and Loyola Chicago. I mean, obviously there's Boeheim, but I mean, I don't know how much people really trust Syracuse based on kind of recent performance. Like you never really rule them out, but you never really favor them either.
Yeah, I mean, going to their matchup, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting type of matchup. Of course, the Orangemen versus the Cougars. I was right on the Cougars. Um, when it comes to Syracuse, they run a different style. They're more of a 2-3 zone, 3-point shooting. Like they're gonna get into you. They're gonna get after you. Two really good, solid free throw shooting teams, with Syracuse being the better one at almost 80%, shooting 78%. And so, in my opinion, I think when I look at those numbers, when I look at the Orangemen, when I look at Syracuse and Houston, I mean, this to me, I want to pick Houston just because I think they could do it, but Syracuse is they're starting to grow on me a little bit. I think that, you know, the last time that Syracuse was like this sort of, Syracuse has always been kind of a favorite in many scenarios and has always underperformed. But I do think that they're the best when they're underdogs. And, this is another underdog story. They're facing a number 2 team in Houston. I think this could bode well for a recipe for Buddy Boeheim, for the rest of those guys on Syracuse, for a winning recipe. And I think I'm going to go with my heart over my head here, and I'm going to pick the Orangemen winning against the Cougars.
I got Houston in the next round. Had them in my bracket as well, but yeah, honestly, a crazy run from Syracuse to make it here. Definitely didn't think West Virginia was going to get knocked out that early, but yeah, they kind of I feel like West Virginia and Syracuse are kind of similar in the tournament. Like they have their gimmicks. West Virginia loves to press. Syracuse likes the zone. It was only a 3-point game between them, so that game was also close. But I like Houston, even though they barely kind of scraped by Rutgers last game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like this is going to be one of those games where each team has their own gimmick. Each team has like the things that they like, or kind of are different than your traditional, basically just man to man defense and just running some offense. Like there's some zone now. You got to deal with many other factors, and so like I said, this will be a fun one just because each coach likes to do their own thing, and we'll see which coach is what system works and what system doesn't. And then kind of moving on to, and we'll save the best for last. We'll save the South for last because there's a fun matchup there. Let's move on to another kind of another Pac-12 SEC kind of situation. That's of course the UCLA Bruins versus the Crimson Tide. Again, the Pac-12 has continued to somehow win games. I believe they're undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. They might have 1 or 2 losses, but I believe that they're undefeated so far in the tournament play. PM, I don't know where you had these two teams in your bracket. Obviously, I did not have UCLA this high. I think I had the Crimson Tide this high because I think I had them playing BYU in this round.
Yeah.
And I think everybody else did. But with that being said, Crimson Tide, UCLA Bruins, who wins, who doesn't, and why?
It's got to be Alabama for me because I picked Alabama in the Final Four. Watched a lot of them as well. Love the way they run the floor. Love their athleticism. Yeah, SEC is really interesting for basketball this year, but I did not have UCLA here. I was really sad because I wanted to pick one of the first 4 teams into the Sweet 16. Generally, I think every year besides one, a first 4 team has made it to the Sweet 16. And I knew that. I just had to try and go with BYU just because I'm WCC stan. I was trying to give them a little support. They proved to not return that favor, lost in the first round. Yeah, I mean, take nothing away from UCLA though. I think they're another kind of team like, Oregon and USC, where it's like over the course of the season, they definitely didn't impress you. But I mean, just these last 2 games, double-digit wins in both of them. Texas fell flat in the first round, so they got to face Abilene Christian. Johnny Juzang is where they live or die. Love that he's repping it for all the Asians out there on the court. I just feel like Alabama's probably got the backcourt to contend with him. Contest his shots, make sure his life is difficult. I think if you stop him, then I think UCLA looks a lot more, mortal than they have been.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just think Alabama's got overall just the top tier talent. I feel like it's got to go to Alabama. And Johnny Juzang's been crazy. If he puts up 30 plus this game, they got a chance. But yeah, I'd be surprised if Alabama didn't make it here.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a battle of two styles of play, right? I think UCLA is a little bit more, I would say, organized, more like they're trying to limit your possessions. They're trying to limit their mistakes, and try to find the best shot that they can possible. I mean, you can see it in the numbers, right? Like the fact that you look at how many threes Alabama has taken compared to UCLA. I mean, it's about 6.8, 18.2 compared to 10.7 and 30 3-point attempts for Alabama. So Alabama wants to go up and down. They basically want to take shots basically as soon as like early in the shot clock, try to get you going, try to get you amped up. I mean, there's a reason why they average almost 14 turnovers a game, where UCLA in the meanwhile only averages about 10.8. And so it's definitely a contrasting style of play where, UCLA is a little bit more methodical. They'll slow it down. They'll make sure that they get the right shot. And usually they do find the right guy for the right open 3-point shot. Whereas Alabama, they're more so like, we'll get those shots anytime, any place. We just need to go up and down and kind of create a momentum and a pace to where the other team has to feel like they're getting hurried up. They're getting in a situation where they have to kind of continually try to hurry up the opponent so they can make mistakes as well. And so this is going to be a fun one. I have Alabama probably winning this one. UCLA, great run. I think they have a great team, and I do think that their team is pretty solid. But again, at the same time, I just think Alabama and their style, I just think it just bodes well. If they can get UCLA to play that style, I think Alabama wins single-handedly, and I think that they're going to rout UCLA if they are able to play their style of going up and down the court, creating turnovers off steals, and just basically creating that fast-paced offense that the coach loves to run. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah, I definitely think Alabama's got the talent to kind of get UCLA out of the comfort zone, because I think UCLA is definitely a lot more comfortable the lower the score is. Alabama's pushing the pace, trying to get up there, up and down. So yeah, I think Alabama's a really good pick here.
And then kind of moving on to their next opponent that they would probably face, of course, is the Florida State Seminoles versus the Michigan Wolverines, obviously led by Juwan Howard. Michigan without their star point guard. But with that being said, this is going to be an interesting matchup. This is going to be another fun one. But at the end of the day, I think I still have Michigan winning this one. I actually have Michigan winning the whole thing. So I think Michigan I didn't have Michigan win the whole thing. I had them in the final. But I do have Michigan winning this game. I just think that Florida, they are a little too unpredictable to me. I don't know which Florida State is going to show up. Am I going to get the ones? Am I going to get the Florida State that beat Colorado, or am I going to get the one that kind of struggled in their ACC tournament? Like, I don't know which Florida State I'm going to get. And so with the inconsistencies of Florida State, I had to go with the Wolverines here. The Wolverines seem to take care of the ball pretty well. Florida State, they're another team that doesn't really are very they don't take care of the ball very well compared to Michigan. Michigan at 11.2, Florida State at 14.5. But then again, Florida State likes to create momentum for themselves by playing defense, getting up India, and basically taking a lot of shots. They take the same amount of shots. I think they're just trying to create more pressure with defense. And looking at the numbers, everything bodes for Michigan to win this game.
Yeah, this is actually my upset pick. I picked Florida State here. Picked both these teams to also be here. I did think about putting LSU over Michigan because I've seen LSU play some close games versus Alabama, and honestly, they gave Michigan a really close run. They almost took them in that round. Ended up losing by 8. But that was a 1 or 2 possession game for most of the time. Yeah, I feel like missing your point guard is probably a killer blow for 99% of teams. I think Gonzaga would maybe be okay just because we have a 5-star point guard coming off the bench. Or I guess he used to, but now he starts. But Michigan, I feel like they've been really up and down these past couple weeks. They looked really good for a lot of the year. Toward the back half of their schedule, they kind of faded. Lost a couple games toward the end of the year. And yeah, they lost in the Big Ten championship to Ohio State. That was kind of a surprise. And then, yeah, close game versus LSU. I know that there's one team I never like facing in the tournament, and that's Florida State. Florida State's played Gonzaga close over these last couple of years. They knocked us out one year, and then we ended up knocking them out, I think in 2017 or 18. But they've always got the athleticism, the size, really good rebounding. Yeah, I feel like Florida State's strengths are really, really tough for any team to kind of play against. They won both their games pretty easy. And then Michigan's kind of, had kind of a weird year. So I picked Florida State here. I could definitely see Michigan winning, but my pick is Florida State. I think their athleticism just so annoying to play against. And then if you get down versus them, you better pray you make shots because they're going to keep you off the boards. So
Yeah,
Florida State versus Alabama in the Elite Eight for me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say about Florida State too is that like out of bounds defense, they are one of the best in the country. I actually watched a breakdown of it and just how hard it is to kind of get past them and even just score points against them. And like you said, PM, once they get a lead, they're lockdown D. They'll make sure that you don't get any type of offense going. So again, it will be fun to watch. It will be an interesting scenario to see who on between those two teams is going to take the W. But moving on to the South region, we'll save the best for last. Obviously, we have the Villanova Wildcats versus the Baylor Bears. No one in I didn't really have Villanova here. I think I had Villanova losing in my bracket. Villanova has found themselves to be, hanging in there. They won the championship a couple years back. But Baylor seems to be very poised and looking to try and win the championship this year. Again, when I look at the numbers, Baylor and Villanova, they want to move up and down the court. Same thing 3-point wise. But what makes Baylor very tough is that shooting 41% from three is amazing. Like that will always win you basketball games. And the fact that they do a really good job with block, they have great shot blockers in there. Assist wise, they're good. But what might help the Villanova Wildcats could be their turnovers per game at 8.8. One of the lower ones right now. I think that could bode well for them, being able to kind of battle out the Baylor Bears, even though the Baylor Bears steals per game are at 9.1. So this is definitely a contrasting battles. Again, Villanova wants to go up and down the court, but they're not going to go up and down the court unless they need to. And so this is another battle of matchups, but I think I have the Baylor Bears winning this one. The Wildcats story ends here, and we'll see what happens with Jay Wright and Villanova.
Yeah, if Jay Wright pulls this upset off, I gotta respect. It's probably one of the most impressive things he's done over there. He lost his star in Gillespie. Baylor is obviously a really tough team to play against. They're very aggressive on defense and they shoot really high percentage of threes. I thought Wisconsin gave him a decent game in that last round. Yeah, if Villanova can pull this off, that would be unbelievable. I just don't know if they have the defense to kind of keep Baylor out of the next round. So, yeah, my pick's got to be Baylor.
Yeah. I mean, Villanova, again, this is a great story. They have a lot of good players, but at the end of the day, like you said, Baylor offensively is just too strong. Defensively, they get India. And, Baylor, again, another Final Four team that could make a case for the championship game and, even make a chase for winning it. So we'll see what happens. But again, I have Baylor in this round. And of course, PM, saving the best for last. This one has to be talked about. Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Oral Roberts Colgate toothbrush Golden Eagles. Not to be disrespectful, but the Oral Roberts Golden Eagles if you had this in your bracket matchup, I believe that you are from the future and you are here to win a lot of money. But nevertheless, Oral Roberts, a great story, awesome situation that we're looking here. Again, a battle of two type of styles here. Oral Roberts more up and down. They want to get up and down. So do the Razorbacks. You look at the 3-pointers per game. Oral Roberts almost 33s a game compared to 22 for Arkansas. Rebounding wise, Arkansas wins that. Assist wise, Arkansas wins again. Turnovers, Oral Roberts wins that one. And of course, steals wise, so does Arkansas. The SEC is a very up and down situation. You have Oral Roberts a little more methodical, but still, getting the shots up that they need. So, with that being said, PM, who do you have winning this matchup and why?
That's actually really interesting. I'm just looking at a little preview, and it actually saying that Arkansas and Oral Roberts played in the regular season this year, back in December. Razorbacks won 87-76, which honestly isn't that big of a gap considering that I think Oral Roberts was, like third or fourth in the conference this year, which is just incredible that they've made the run that they have. I don't want to pick Oral Roberts here. Very imperial team. Me and you were on the Discord last time when they were playing Ohio State, and we kind of, I think we remember talking about the flow of the game, and Oral Roberts had like 7 or 8 points at one point, and we were like, if they can hit shots, this game is over. But if they struggle to hit shots over this next 5-10 minutes, then it's going to be a close game. Well, Oral Roberts was hunting for threes that entire game. Kind of almost cost them at the end, but they ended up winning by 3 in overtime, and then won by 3 again versus Florida. Arkansas also had some close-ish first half versus Colgate. I think that they were down by about 10 points there. And they had just escaped Texas Tech as Texas Tech blew a wide open layup to tie that game, sadly, as I had Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. But I'm going to go with Oral Roberts just because I love the story. I love the way they play. Their 2 guys that they have are incredible. It's like, what is his name? How do you pronounce his name? Omabas? They have a guard and a big
Abmas.
Those 2 guys, incredible. That big guy is one of the most talented big in college basketball. He's incredible.
Yeah,
you run a pick and roll with those 2. It's almost unstoppable because that guy can pop out and shoot 40% from 3. If the big guy can, or that guy can take you off the dribble, and that guy is also shooting from 3. That's a hard combo to stop.
Yeah, I definitely think they'll they obviously played each other earlier in the year, but I think with UPM I kind of agree with you. I think Oral Roberts could be a team that I love their 3-point shooting wise, their 3-point percentage wise. They're shooting about 40% from 3 compared to 33 from Arkansas. You also have free throw percentage wise. They may not get to the line as much, but as long as you're methodical at the line, if you can shoot 82% from your free throws, that's awesome. And that's obviously the Razorbacks go up to the line a little bit more than them, but they only shoot 73.7%, so 74%. And so looking at all the numbers, looking at everything that I see here, turnovers per game, Oral Roberts does a better job of taking care of the ball. Blocks per game, that obviously goes to Arkansas, but everything else, it seems like it's very even. And I just think that with Oral Roberts shooting and just kind of that pick and roll combination, even the big man just shooting those threes like he has been, I think Oral Roberts gets the W. And I think that we're going to have a very interesting Sweet 16 turn to Elite 8 with Oral Roberts being in there.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. Can you imagine if Oral Roberts takes down Baylor? That would be one of the stories, I think, of any college tournament in history. Oral Roberts wins these next 2 games.
Yeah, if they face Baylor in the next round, like if they win this Arkansas matchup, go to Baylor and win there, that's gonna be stuff of legends. Like you just don't hear about those stories. And so In my opinion, I just think that Oral Roberts, they have the shooting ability. It's about taking care of the ball and not really. I think the SEC, like I talked about, really plays that up and down style, tries to get teams to go fast and go at a different pace to kind of try and keep up with them. But I think as long as Oral Roberts stays true to themselves and stays true to their pace and stays true to what they need to play as, then I have no problem putting them in the Elite Eight, and even maybe get to the Final Four. But it's gonna have to be a special game, shooting lights out against Baylor. So we'll see what happens. This is gonna be a fun matchup. And so, I mean, do you have any last words, PM, before we kind of sign out of here?
Yeah, the Oral Roberts head coach, Paul Mills, he was actually an assistant at Baylor in 2017, and up until that point, he had coached at Baylor for 10, 15 years. So that'll be an awesome basketball headline if they end up facing Baylor in the next round. Also, the two guys we were talking about, Max Abmas, Abmas, and Kevin Obanor. Those are the two highest scoring players in men's basketball. So the high scoring duo, they got Abmas averages 24.6 and Obanor averages 19. So that's got to be the team. That's got to be the team you're rooting for this weekend. Yeah. I mean, I feel like also Loyola, Chicago, Oregon State, whoever wins that game is, it's going to be easy to root for all of them. So root for all the chaos. Why not? Besides Gonzaga. Don't root.
Besides Gonzaga. Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is gonna be a fun Sweet 16. Hopefully, turn to Elite Eight, and just we'll see what happens, man. Like, hopefully, nothing crazy with COVID happens. So, knocking on wood on that sort of scenario. So, this will be a fun one. Let us know in the comments section who you guys think is gonna win the Sweet 16. Their matchups. Do you have Loyola and Sister Jean going to the Final Four, winning the whole thing? Do you have Syracuse and Buddy Boeheim doing something? Do you have the Cougars doing something? You have the Crimson Tide, the Bruins, the Seminoles, the Wolverines, the Trojans, the Ducks, the Eagles, the Razorbacks, the Bears, the Wildcats, the Bulldogs, or the Blue Jays. I think they're the Blue Jays. Are they just? Yeah, they are the Blue Jays in Creighton, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it here for the Charge. Thank you once again for my boy PM for coming on the show. Thank you, PM.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Wait, real quick before you get off, if you could change your natty champion, would you change it right now to Gonzaga?
I'd probably change it to. If I had to change, I probably honestly would change it to the Baylor Bears. Man, they look good.
They have a good path to the Final Four as well.
I know.
I'll respect it. It's
Yeah.
okay as long as we get. I mean, if we get Gonzaga Baylor in the championship, that's going to be as good of a matchup as any of us could have asked for.
Yeah, maybe you'll see Sister Jean in the championship game.
All Jesuit matchup, baby. I would love that.
All Jesuit matchup.
Yeah, we got the power of the Lord on our side. But anyway, thanks for having me on. Go Zags, baby.
All right, you heard PM, and if any of my Gonzaga friends or any Gonzaga teammates, or not, well, teammates, I never played on there, but if any of my people that are from Gonzaga, let me know in the comment section down below who you guys think will win this matchup. Do you think that the Gonzaga Bulldogs can win the NCAA championship, or do you think it could be any of one of these teams? Again, this is going to be a fun game. This is going to be a fun weekend. Hopefully you guys are tuning into it. I'll make sure to tune into it. I'm going to unfortunately be gone this weekend, so I will not be covering any of this stuff during the weekend. But let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think of these Sweet 16 matchups that are going to turn Elite Eight. And let me know who you guys are going to think is going to win these games. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and basketball opinions. Appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Hopefully you guys are getting your basketball education here. Obviously, I'm a fraud when it comes to NBA news, or I should say NCAA news and rumors. But as it pertains to the NBA, we talk about that straight up 100. Of course, we got LaMelo Ball news as well that we could talk about a little bit later into the chat. Or I should say, maybe not the chat, but later on in the stream. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for tuning into the Charge. Like I said, please remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button. And also remember to share this with your friends and family and whoever else loves basketball, man. We are trying to grow this community. We're trying to become a great basketball organization, great basketball community. So like I said, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. I will catch you on the next episode, and we'll see you next week. Peace.